Hello, I'm Eileen McHugh with the BBC News. Votes are being counted in Brazil after one of the most polarised presidential elections in decades. The right-wing incumbent Jair Bolsonaro is facing a strong challenge from his socialist rival Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Millions of people queued for hours to cast their votes in what Lula has described as the most important elections in Brazil's history. Mr. Bolsonaro has repeatedly cast doubt on the integrity of the election. Mauricio Santoro is a professor of international relations at the State University of Rio de Janeiro.
This has been a very tense election with lots of violent incidents, and our greatest fear here in Brazil is that Bolsonaro will not accept the results of the election in a similar way to what Trump did in the United States. So we face the threat of something like the Capitol invasion here in Brazil, perhaps an attack against the Supreme Court, perhaps violent clashes between supporters of Bolsonaro and Lula. And that would be the first time in Brazil that something like that happens since the return of democracy.
Gunfire has been reported at one of Iran's top technology universities in the capital Tehran during another night of anti-government protests. Demonstrations have been sweeping Iran for nearly 2 weeks after the death in custody of a young woman detained by Iran's morality police for allegedly breaking the Islamic Republic's strict hijab laws. Here's Kazra Naji.
Reports say a large number of students at Sharif University in central Tehran have been trapped in a car park, with security forces trying to flush them out by force. Videos on social media showed students running away, pursued by security forces on motorbikes. Relatives of the students have gathered near entrances to the university trying to find out what is happening to their sons and daughters. Many of the students are first-year freshers, and today was their first day at university. Some of them are reported to have been shot with pellet guns.
Kazra Naji reporting. A ceasefire in Yemen's civil war has ended after 6 months. The United Nations said no agreement had been reached on extending the truce between Houthi rebels and a Saudi-led coalition. The UN said negotiations on renewing the deal for a third time would continue and called on both sides to remain calm. Mike Thompson has this report.
Yemen's nationwide ceasefire between Iran-backed Houthi rebels and Saudi-led coalition forces was first agreed in April this year. Since then, it's been extended twice for 2 months each time. But the Houthis now say the truce has reached a dead end. Although both sides have violated the ceasefire at different times, it has enabled some desperately needed aid supplies to reach civilians.
Mike Thompson reporting. This is the latest world news from the BBC. Burkina Faso's new military leader, who seized power in a coup on Friday, says the entire country faces an emergency in every sector. Captain Ibrahim Traoré said urgent action was needed in areas such as defence, health and infrastructure. Earlier, religious and traditional leaders said the ousted leader, Paul-Henri Damiba, had agreed to step down. Bulgaria's former Prime Minister Kirill Petkov has admitted defeat in Sunday's parliamentary election. Exit polls suggest a narrow victory for another of the country's former leaders, Boyko Borisov, and his centre-right Gerb party. He's expected to face the difficult task of forming a coalition. Nick Thorpe reports.
Exit polls in Bulgaria gave former Prime Minister Boyko Borisov's Gerb party a clear lead, with around 24%. About 5% ahead of Kirill Petkov's We Continue the Change. If the official count confirms predictions, Mr. Borisov will get the first chance to form the next government. A far-right pro-Russian party, Revival, looks set to double its earlier vote, with 10% of votes cast on a day of low turnout.
A senior Israeli official has said that the country's defence forces are logistically unprepared to continue their major arrest operation in the occupied West Bank. State Controller Netanyahu Engelman's investigation focused on reservist troops serving at the Yakir military post near an Israeli settlement of the same name in the central West Bank. He found some to be missing essential equipment, including weapons and vehicles. The Health Ministry in Haiti says as many as 8 people have died of cholera, raising fears of a devastating outbreak of the disease. 12 years ago, cholera killed almost 10,000 Haitians. Its spread was blamed on a UN peacekeeping force. The authorities now say they're investigating several possible cases in the outskirts of Port-au-Prince. BBC News.